What's up, Dragon Brood? With all the hype going on and discussion on Commander Legends right now, I figured I would kind of chime in with my piece because I've had a few people ask me about my opinions and what I've seen on my stream and whatnot. And I want to talk about just the set in general. I'm not going to talk too much about specific cards, but as far as the way the set's structured, I want to say that we've actually looks like we've got a pretty good set on our hands, honestly. I mean, look at just the reprints in this set. When you're talking about Scroll Rack, Rings of Brighthearth, Najeela, Queen Marchesa, or even Prosh getting reprinted. Like, these are all very good cards. Or even something like Vampiric Tutor. These are cards that we don't have great spots to reprint anywhere. And some of those were starting to get kind of pricey for Commander players. And if you want to keep the casual format playable and affordable, you kind of have to do things like this from time to time. So I'm all about it. I do think overall the set being designed to be played in a draftable format is kind of odd. Anybody who's listened to my podcast knows that I've not been a proponent of making these special sets, especially master sets, reprint sets to a large extent, be draftable. I think the reason for me is because it ends up with us getting a lot of the only way to describe it, commons and uncommons mostly, but even sometimes using up rare mythic slots for cards that nobody really wants or needs or don't have any real value or desirability. And that's a big letdown, when you're spending $6 to $12 per booster to get cards that, you're just honestly never even going to consider playing. So I don't love that aspect of it. Now, I will say, it seems like they actually got it right with Commander Legends. So far, when I flip through even most of the commons and uncommons, whether we really needed them or not, I can at least see what their use is, where they fit into a deck or a theme, or create some ETB trigger or whatever for some of the different legends, and that's pretty cool. So in that regard, I love it. The problem is when we get that in other sets, especially like I said, other master sets, it's usually with cards that don't even have a special use other than sometimes just filling a spot on a curve or being a rare that happens to work with some sub theme or something. So here it gets a pass. The problem though is that now we have this whole thing going on with COVID. Not a lot of people are going to get together and draft. So unfortunately, the time I feel they got it right, no one's going to get to find out. There will be some people, obviously, that try to find a way to draft it one way or the other. Please be safe in doing so if you decide to be one of those people. But most of us aren't going to draft it. We're going to be loading up our stuff, sleeving it up, and then loading onto Spell Table and playing our games of Commander that way. And that's okay. The set offers a lot. There's a ton of cool new cards. And yeah, why shouldn't there be? This is the one time you've gotten a set that's all about Commander players. And some of these actually do have real world uses in things like Legacy and Vintage. So it'd be interesting to see where they fit in for those formats. And I guess if you play Pauper, there's going to be some cool commons here too. So that's a thing, right? So everybody's kind of getting a little bit of something out of this set. And I think it's very cool. There are a couple of cards to talk about though that have caused some controversy in the past week. First is Opposition Agent. Here's the thing about Opposition Agent, and I sort of feel bad for R&D on this one, is that the card is actually okay. I think we have other Magic cards that have affected your opponents drawing cards or searching for cards or whatever, so this isn't that weird. The downside, though, is the person who controls Opposition Agent is supposed to go and search through your deck. Well, in this whole post-COVID world, when we actually do get to game again together, you're probably not going to want a bunch of people feeling all over your cards. So we'll have to figure out how that works. And obviously it's not going to work well in a world of Spell Table, for example. Those are my real issues with the card. As far as what it does, that doesn't really bother me. But like I said, logistically how it's going to play, that's going to be a little uncomfortable for a bit. So, I would not be surprised if you just see a lot of social circles where the Opposition Agent's just not allowed. Now, the next card that's caused a lot of controversy, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but Jeweled Lotus. And people either seem to love it and really want to shove it in a deck, think it's not that big a deal, or just want to be mad at it and don't have a reason. It's sort of what it feels like. But being honest, people want to know, where do I stand on it? For me, truthfully, I don't think it's all that bad. And hear me out on this. Like, it's not any better really than a Soul Ring or a Mana Vault or tons of other like early cheap artifact mana that you can use over and over. The other thing here is that it does produce color, but it only produces one color. It often isn't going to let you get your Planeswalker out, or your Commander out, excuse me. The problem being though, like, you're going to use it and then it goes away, and then what? I mean, I know some people look at it and say, well, if you have these 6 cards, this thing happens, or these 7 cards. Like, sure, those are Magic Christmas Land scenarios, and almost every deck has at least 1 or 2 of those that can happen, but they don't happen that frequently. If anything, this card has more value as a 0 mana artifact that can be reused with things, but we have plenty of those anyway, and a lot of those just do more. I mean, even something like a Lotus Petal can at least be used on any card. This can only be used to create mana that can be used towards your commander. So that, I think, already creates a limiting factor. Combine that with the fact that it only produces 1 color. That's another factor. And some people said, well, okay, what if my opponent gets their Planeswalker out on turn 1? I'm like, okay, great, but the rest of their deck hasn't even come online yet, right? They still have to find mana to play the other spells. So now they have a Planeswalker that's just a sitting duck that's not doing anything. And it's still susceptible, most likely, to Swords of Plowshare, you know, Path to Exile, Terror, whatever other removal you choose to play in your commander decks. So I think that also reduces the effectiveness of the card to some level. So, I mean, the card's fine. I don't think it's terrible, don't get me wrong. But one of the things we did talk about a little bit briefly when I was having a discussion with the Commander Rules Committee was that, if anything, it's the perception that now the game is faster, or that you should try to be using this card to get your commander out faster. But how many times have we seen games where your commander doesn't even hit the table? Like, it's the type of card basically that comes up and it's either going to be great for you or be terrible for you. And there feels like there's very little middle ground, and I wouldn't even want to fill my deck with those types of cards in most cases. Now, some people are going to try to, and that's great. And maybe this changes competitive commander. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that format, and I don't play it, so I can't speak to it enough to say one way or the other. When I play commander, it's usually the most casual of commander, and I don't see this card really being an issue. But let's assume that it is an issue. Make it not an issue. I mean, what I'm saying is this. When I was running my store, we had a separate ban list. It included the cards that were already on the commander ban list, and then we just added another, I think it was like 12 or 13 cards of our own. And some of it were because of metagame decisions where a couple of players had a commander that everybody hated playing against or whatever, so we just got rid of it, right? So nobody wanted to play it, let's just make it a thing. You know, there were 2 or 3 problem cards that just too many people were packing and the local community didn't like it. So we put those on there. And that's fine. The format became fun. Everybody enjoyed playing. Wasn't an issue. You can do the same thing for your environments and your commander groups. You know, nothing wrong with that at all. Again, maybe I should have you reference a video that I did recently. But seriously, thinking about it, just there's no reason to really be freaking out over any of these cards. I mean, the set has a lot of positives going for it. There are valuable reprints. They are highly desirable reprints. There's stuff that gives characters cards for the first time that haven't had any in the whole 27, 28 year history of Magic, right? That's a cool thing. There's cards that work with old cards that didn't have support. There's all new themes. Like, you can tell that a lot of work went into this, and R&D really put some thought into what should be in the set. And I think that's very cool. We should acknowledge that too. Are some of these going to be difficult? Some of these going to be problematic and all that? Maybe. I don't really know yet. But I think we got to give it time to really find out. Again, something like Jeweled Lotus, I think, really is one of those cards that looks really insane when you look at it at first, but really when you start looking at the applications, it's not nearly as bad as most people want to say that it is. But I do agree with the fact that the perception will lead to a lot of people wanting to at least try to abuse it, whether it works out or not. I think that's going to lead to the value of the cards spiking and then dropping and then spiking and then dropping. I think you're going to see that for a couple of months. But beyond that, I think the set overall looks like a lot of fun. I mean, this is the type of thing that makes me want to build another commander. And anybody who knows I've had one commander deck for over a decade. So yeah, I think they scored it right here. But I will say, just be aware, be vigilant, and keep your eyes on certain cards. Do I think a bunch of these will end up on a ban list with the RC or whatever? Like, no, I don't think so. If anything, the only card that really I think could lead to being on a ban list is Opposition Agent. And it's not even because of what it does, it's really because of how it does it that I think has potential to put it on a list. But anyway, let me know in the comments down below what you think about this set, what cards you're looking forward to building with, and what cards you think are going to be a real problem. I think there's going to be a lot of good discussion out of that. And if you haven't, please remember to like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and then come back and check out the channel as we have videos up every single day. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.